NECA just released Saki's second in command. Here's your look at the NECA Toys Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Tatsu. Tatsu, the Foot Clan's cruel second-in-command and sworn enemy of the Turtles, is getting NECA's ultimate treatment with authentic movie detailing. This 7-inch scale action figure is dressed in custom-made soft goods clothing and includes interchangeable heads, extra hands, training sword, Oni mask, katana, and more. I don't know about Ninja Vanish, but Tatsu may vanish if you don't get your hands on grabbing this guy right away. For fans, though, of the Ninja Turtle line, what we've been getting from NECA over the years, Tatsu was one of those must-have characters, and we finally get a release of him. Speaking of NECA, I'd like to thank the folks over at NECA that did provide the sample of Tatsu that we could have a look at. The figure, though, is going to stand at about 6.5 inches in height, or the second command to Shredder is going to stand at 16.5 centimeters tall. Speaking of Shredder, here's what the figure looks like with Oroku Saki. From a size standpoint, Tatsu is shorter than Shredder, but I feel like maybe he could have even been a little bit shorter still. Bring in some of the other figures as well from the first movie. Here's what the figure looks like with Casey Jones, Danny. Danny was an exclusive, I believe, to Loot Crate. Here's also what he looks like with Master Splinter. Hey, why not? We can bring in April O'Neil. And just in case you wanted to see what he looks like with one of the Turtles, here's what he looks like with Michelangelo. A decent amount of accessories does come include with Tatsu. Tatsu in the movie was played by actor Toshishiro Obata. Looking online at his filmography, yes, of course, he would have been known for doing a lot of martial arts movies, but he was also doing a lot of big blockbuster movies as well, like The Shadow and Demolition Man. For the character's accessories, the figure does come, first of all, included with 2 variations of fan. You like your fans folded up? Well, he gets one of those. If you like your fan folded or opened up, he also comes with one of those as well. The plastic that they've used for the folded up fan is pretty soft, so you just want to be careful of that. I don't think really neither one of these will be displayed with the figure on my shelf, but I do again appreciate whenever NECA throws in extra things like this. He does also come included with a gripping hand specifically for holding the fan. He comes with 2 gripping hands, and then he comes with this hand here that you can see has a little split in the middle. You can take the folded up fan. I suppose if you wanted to have it the white on the edge here, you just basically tuck that in between his fingers, and you can hold the fan that way. He does also have the means to hold the following thing as well. The figure does come included with one of the removed or about to be added to one of the new recruits masks of the Foot Clan. I don't know if it's supposed to look like this or if it's supposed to be flipped around the other way, but I mean, you get the idea. It almost kind of looks like a big giant squished fly. You can take the mask. There's like a little lip right here, and you can actually use the same hand that we were using for holding the fan, and you have to kind of just tuck the mask in there. With that little bit of plastic, it's just the right amount. If you get it in there, this would be so much easier if I didn't have like moisturizer on my hands. Oh boy. Anyways, we're again just going to tuck the mask in there, and he does hold it, and he holds it fairly well. If you weren't having slippery fingers, though. The figure, speaking of hands, does also come included with a couple of gripping hands for, of course, the kendo sword, kendo stick, as well as his sword as well. And the figure also comes included with a pair of relaxed hands or karate chopping hands. By the way, if you did want to change out these hands, just a case of grabbing the figure, holding on to dear life, don't let this guy go, whatever you do, and then just pop the hand that you want to use off, or take the hand that you don't want to use off, and put the hand that you want to use back in place. Fairly easy to swap out the hands. I mean, it's not like it's a tutorial and show you guys how to change out the hands. The figure also comes included with an Omni mask. Now, the Omni mask is a really interesting designed mask. Omni, I believe, is a creature kind of in old, like, Japan and China culture. It's a basically, it's usually a big giant creature of large size, strength, and a fearful appearance. It certainly is a fearful looking. Does certainly look a little bit like the devil. This mask does fit over the top of his head. I mean, it doesn't really matter if you're using necessarily this head or the alternate one that he comes included with. This tiny little strap is going to be doing all the work. You can take this and fit this over top of his head and slide it down carefully. Sort of the same caution that you'll have to approach when it comes to Jason Voorhees figures will be the same caution you may have to apply as well to Tatsu. That strap is just very thin. And obviously, it goes without saying that strap could potentially break if you're not too careful. Like the look of the Omni mask, I just don't know, again, like the fans, if it's ever going to be something I'm going to be displaying with the figure. So let's go ahead and remove that. Also, as already mentioned, the figure does come included with 2 things. First of all, he comes with his training stick or kendo stick, nicely painted here in yellow. So you got a little bit of bands of red and some additional white added in there as well. Or if you prefer something a little sharper, the figure does also come with a sheathed sword. Let's unsheath the sword. Right there. There doesn't seem to be a place, although there is a string, that doesn't look like it does attach anywhere on the figure's body. If there had been maybe just a hook, for example, you could have hooked it just on the side of his belt. Unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be a case. But the sword itself has been nicely painted. You got some silver there for the blade. The guard, the hilt, all adorned here in black and gold. Very, very cool. And again, if you wanted to, you can easily put that into his hands. I think of the accessories that the figure does come included with, and again, I'm not knocking the fact that we get as many as we do, probably will just, if anything, display the figure either with the kendo stick or maybe even just with the sword. And maybe, if anything, have maybe the folded up foot soldier. That's the gesture for folding up. The folded up foot soldier mask, I might just have that in his other hand. So those are all the accessories that come included with Tatsu, short of one thing. Let's just remove the sword from his hand. There we go. Pop that back in place. Yes, the only other thing that comes included with the figure is an alternate face portrait. Now, this could be, if you look at the logic of this could be the face where he's saying, "Ninja, vanish." It's just, though, a case of, as you can see, he's got kind of a, I would say normally a neutral expression, but the man just seems generally ticked off all the time. If you prefer, though, him yelling, then there's the alternative to that as well. One problem, though, I do face with Tatsu. Please tell us more. Yes, one problem that I face with the figure is that removing the head and replacing the head is a tricky thing to do. The figure, I will tell you right away, is using a ball joint, and it's one of those larger ball joints. I honestly really wish that the figure could have used the post. NECA figures have done posts in the past, and yet they've also done ball joints in the past. Ball joints are always seeming to be the harder thing to change. By the way, though, just giving you guys a close look at what the face sculpt looks like. I mean, from an expression and certainly the likeness, I don't think they could have landed better on both. And of course, he does have decent levels of posability. We'll talk all about that in a second. So to remove the head is, again, not the easiest thing to do. The figure's going to be on a ball joint. And the ball joint, I have already, in preparation of this, heated the head. And it removed easy enough the first time I did this. But sure enough, there we go. Whoops, let's not knock things around in the process. In the process of actually trying to remove the head, I just heated it up. It seems to have now cooled the plastic. But you, like, look at the size of this ball joint. Do we all agree that perhaps the ball joint is a little bit too large on this? A post would have certainly been so much simpler. Anyways, if you want to take the head, pop the head back on there. Now, I find it's easy myself just to put a little pressure. There we go. Pop it on the top of that. The head sculpts, either one of them are good. The thing about it, though, is you really have to decide for yourself which head you're going to use, because just know if you're going to have to change it down the road, you're going to have to struggle as much as I do. Or again, you could take a few passes with the hairdryer just to soften up that plastic a little bit. Might make things a little bit easier to remove the alternate portraits. For the rest of Tatsu's outfits, you'll see one thing that's very different about this guy that hasn't been the case so far with any of the movie Turtles, is that he's actually wearing a real fabric outfit. Shudder didn't have this, April O'Neil and certainly Casey Jones never had that either as well, and nor did Danny. Tatsu, I think as far as I know, short of Master Splinter, is the only one that actually has had a soft goods material. It would work best, I feel, for a character like Tatsu. Just imagine, if you will, if this guy was all just using molded plastic. I mean, the likelihood of being able to do anything with this figure from a standpoint of posability would be next to impossible. You wouldn't be able to bend his elbows. You wouldn't really be able to do anything. Sure, the sculpt would be there and it would match the rest of the Turtles line, but I feel like fabric, honestly, is the best way they could have gone. There are a few little areas, though, that are still using plastic. Like, for example, the part that goes over top of the, I guess his robe. This is all using a softer plastic, but all the rest of it really is just using soft goods. Underneath all that, though, if we lift up the hood, you can see he's actually got himself just a standard body underneath. Now, I was looking at this and I was thinking, I wonder if they were using some of the old foot soldier parts for this. But generally, though, you're looking at the limbs and how long they are. They're generally a shorter limb, so they probably would have had to tool brand new parts for Tatsu's lower half of his body. But I think the fabric looks good. It looks fairly accurate to it the way it does in the movie. And really, it's the smartest thing that NECA could have really done. Plastic just would not have worked. For the figure's articulation, I don't know why I'm spinning my finger around like this. The head's going to be on a ball joint. We've already established that, I know. You can rotate the head all the way around. Tatsu's head looks down, it looks up, and it also rocks back and forth as well. The upper torso is going to be on a ball joint. Despite all the things that he has in front of him, you can still fairly easily move his torso around. His arms come out at 90 degrees. You can take those arms and move them forward. You can move them back. The figure does have no swivel, it seems, in his bicep, but you can, though, at least rotate his arm back and forth. And the figure does have what only seems to be, if I just roll up the sleeve here, yeah, just a single hinge in his elbow. One of the only other things I was kind of worried about is using this material if it was going to stain it. But you'll see inside, actually, that the printing, or I guess the ink that they would have added to the fabric, is only really on the outside. The inside, sort of think of it this way, as it's like a protective layer. So I think there's a very unlikely that any of this stain is going to find its way onto the plastic, because that was a concern of mine as well. As for his legs, the legs split out. Even though he's got big and baggy pants, it doesn't seem to have any issues with him really. First of all, standing, you can also move the legs back and forth. They are really tight and ratcheted. You can probably even hear for yourself. The figure does have a double hinge in his knee. Actually, again, let's just roll that up. I can make a double hinge. Yeah, double hinge on the knee right there. And then he has the articulation there in his ankle, not only forward and back, but back and forth as well. Tatsu, again, like one of those characters that for the longest time, I kept saying to myself, you know, if they are going to be doing and going full force when it comes to Ninja Turtle stuff from the 1990s movie, I really hope that they're going to be doing themselves a Tatsu. Sure enough, we had to wait a little longer, but we finally do have a Tatsu that's going to go perfect with my Shredder on my shelf. He is using, again, soft goods, and I think that fabric would have been the only smart way of going with this figure, just with how much he has layer-wise in the movie. There's no way you'd be able to pull that off in plastic. What you ultimately would be getting, though, is a figure that would have next to nothing in the way of posability. Using fabric, smartest route that they could have gone. Although, again, like with all the accessories that the figure does come included, ultimately, I'm only going to probably either go with the kendo stick, maybe the sword, and maybe, if anything, I'll probably have the crumpled up mask in his other hand. Just the only other thing I would have said, though, about the figure is I really wish, though, that the figure could have come included, for example, like with a post system for changing out his head. Using the ball joint, I think, is just one of the hardest things to have to cope with. If you want to ever really change the heads, I'm going to bring back in some of the figures right now. His best buddy, Casey Jones, and, of course, Danny. Never really get the chance to bring in Danny here. You know, again, I just feel like he probably could have worked so much better had they used the post. It's kind of been few and far between. I mean, every once in a while we'll get a figure, a newer released figure that has a ball joint. I kind of always feel I ask the same question. Why are they using a ball joint when it seems a post to change the head would have been so much simpler? When there was first hinting that we were going to be getting ourselves a movie Tatsu, one of my biggest concerns was it was going to be an exclusive somewhere, similar to what they did with Danny. Danny, if you recall, was an exclusive to Loot Crates, and I thought that a similar path may have been taken here for Tatsu, where we would have to go out of our way to try to track a figure down, or if he was going to be like a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive, for example. Neither was the case, though, and luckily this guy's getting just a retail release like every other movie Turtle, so he's easier to come by than some of the exclusives. He's definitely one of those characters that shouldn't have to be hunted down in order to get acquired one, but I'm glad to finally see that this guy got released and he gets as many accessories as he does. Truth, though, be told, half those accessories probably won't be things I'm going to display with the figure. The Omni mask, probably not. Maybe either the fans. I don't think either one of those will be displayed. If anything, the kendo or the sword, and of course the mask of the Foot Clan in his other hand. The thing about it, though, is unfortunately the figure does have still one struggle facing him. Not so much the fact he has soft goods material. That's actually one of the things that are a positive point to the figure. It's the changing of the head sculpts. I had, in preparation to doing the review of this guy, had already heated the head, but even then, with the plastic cooling off, I still had, as you saw in this review, such the struggle to try to change out the head. I feel like really in a case like this, not sure really why NECA chooses sometimes to have figures with posts for their head, so essentially it's just like a little cylinder post, and other times they decide to use a ball joint. I would imagine, if anything, the ball joints are probably a little bit more resilient. Maybe the posts are problematic because you're dealing with a little bit thinner of a plastic. But I feel like a figure like Tatsu probably could have just benefited better by using a post instead of a ball joint. Short of that, though, I love the look of this figure, and he's going to be a welcomed addition to the existing ones that I currently have on my shelf when it comes to the 1990s movie Turtles. Big thank you once again to the folks over at NECA that did provide this sample of the brand new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tatsu that we had the chance to have a look in this review. Let me know what you guys think of this figure down below in the comments section, whether it be the case that you've already picked them up, or whether it be the case that just based on watching this review, this is a figure you definitely could see yourselves picking up. If you guys also enjoyed this video, do it a solid, throw it a like. You guys want to stick around for more so? I hope so. We are going to be looking at a couple more NECA reviews. A couple more NECA reviews will be coming your way for the rest of this week, so make sure you're coming back here on a regular basis. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.